Well, welcome everyone to this episode of Stories for Healing. As you know, this is a series that started at the end of October, and here we are, still racing forward with lots of stories for lots of people. And that's because the world still needs healing. It's really still divided. It's a lot of angst and uncertainty and concern, all understandable. But we can't just live in that world all the time. We really do need to remind ourselves that healing is possible, that reconciliation is possible. And what better way to do that than with a good story? Um, Today, I'm very pleased to invite Valentina Ortiz to come back and tell another story for us. So, Valentina, please tell us a story.
Thank you for the invitation, and hello to everybody from Mexico, from Morelia, Michoacan. And um, this being a healing moment, I am going to share two stories. The first is a personal story. I work with totem animals, and this is a reflection about my life. And the second story is an amazing story called The Truce, which was written by Rosario Castellano, who is an amazing Mexican writer. I hope you are familiar with her. And I've been speaking a lot to Andrea Kamens from Boston. And just yesterday, we were talking about what healing means. And we came to the conclusion, one of the many, that it is important to talk about the wounds. Because if you speak about them, what is spoken can be changed, transformed. What is secret basically rots inside you. And so the second story is a strong story about our wound. It's not to offend anybody. It is just to put it out there so we can work together to heal and to bring a better world, a better times all together. So here we go. Gung gung kutuku gung 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 kutuku gung 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 kutuku gung gung. The woman walked all day long. Finally tired, she laid down on the grass right next to a beautiful pond. Here came the dragonfly, a big dragonfly, bright, bright, bright blue. And it spoke to the woman, and she understood. It said, "Never lose the path. There's always a road." The woman turned around, and there it was, a big, big turtle, a she turtle, an earth turtle. And the woman knew she had to climb on the back of the animal. She climbed, and they went on their way, slow like a turtle. Finally, the woman was desperate. Say, "Hey, turtle, oye, tortuga, nunca vamos a llegar a ningún lado. We're not going to get anywhere at this pace." The turtle turned around, looked at the woman, and said, "Relax and trust." So that's what the woman did. She laid down on the back of the turtle, looking at the sky. It was so beautiful, so many amazing colors, all these changes. And yes, they got there. The turtle deposited the woman on the beach, right next to a pelican, a big pelican. The woman was so amazed. She had always wanted to be inside the beak of a pelican. So she asked the bird, "Can I go in your beak?" And the pelican said, "Oh, woman, you don't want to go in there. It smells." And she answered, "I'm a woman. I can adapt to anything." So the bird opened the beak, and she crawled in and curled up. It was so nice in there. And far away, she heard the voice of the bird saying, "Sleep. You must rest, woman. It is all right." Gung, gung, kutuku, gung, 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 kutuku, gung, gung. Coyote, coyote, coyote. He likes heights. So on his little house, he made a second floor. And from there, gung, gung, kutuku, gung, gung, he could see the whole valley. Then he made a third floor. And from there, gung, gung, kutuku, gung, gung, he could see the river. But he wanted more. So he went into his garden with a big ladder, put it next to the tree, the tallest one, and he climbed the ladder. From there, he could see the ocean. But he wanted more. So he climbed to the very tip of that tree, and there he was almost ready to touch the moon. But he fell. Cayó, 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 cayó. He fell way down into the center of the earth. And there Coyote spread his wings, and oh, he flew as high and as far as he willed. Why? Because before we fly, we must fall. The woman walked and walked, and suddenly in this beautiful little valley, she met with the bear. She met with the deer, and even a dog, Cachirula. And they gave her their strength. The bear taught her to hug, to be very strong. The deer taught her to be quick and smart. And the dog, oh, she taught the woman to think things out, to plan. They worked all day practicing and learning and exchanging knowledges. And then they were exhausted and they fell on the grass looking up. And at that moment, a beautiful butterfly full of colors arrived. And she told the woman she also wanted to give her her strength. So the woman sat up and listened, and the butterfly in the hands of the woman gave her colors and laughter, because that is how you can defeat your enemy. Rosario Castellano dice así: Everything has an owner, says Rosario Castellano. Everything has an owner, land and things. But the problem with we, the Bolometic people, is that we live up in the mountains, and the owner of our place is an evil spirit called the Puku. He is so evil, he will tangle your mind so you will fight with your family and turn your back on your neighbors. He is the one that brings violence, he brings war, he brings hunger. He can dry up the womb of the women and their breasts. He is so evil. They said that before he was invisible. Oh, our grandparents, they were smart. They managed to catch him. You see, he lives in the caves. And so what they did is they brought a big bundle of food. Yes, some pozol, some seeds, even some eggs. And they put it right outside the mouth of the cave. And a big jug of moonshine aguardiente. Ooh, who can resist moonshine? So the Poco came out of the cave and he ate everything and drank so much that he passed out. My grandfathers arrived and tied him up really, really big knots. When he woke up, oh, they say he howled so bad, even the roots of the mountain shook. But something happened. Nobody knows why. Somebody let him go. And he went back up into the mountains, but he's even angrier than before. Oh, yes. Now, if you cut a tree without asking his permission, if you put a fence on a piece of land, then he will punish you. You know what he does? He takes everything out of you, and your eyes are empty. You come home and your family embraces you, feeds you, cares for you, but you are lost. He is the one that makes people crazy. Oh, yes. And now he's changed. He used to be invisible, but now he's a shapeshifter. He becomes an animal or a white man, a Caxtlan. But don't let him fool you. Listen to me. Look at his eyes, straight into his eyes. And if they are red, bloodshot, like when you have a fever, then it is the Caxtlan, not an animal, not a white man. It is the Caxtlan. But yes, we are very much afraid of the Puku. We are also afraid of the white man. I mean, not always. Our great grandparents were wonderful warriors. And when the white man arrived, with his big boots and his big horses, our warriors, they fought. But the white man had these big guns that exploded. So most of us were killed. And those who were not were put into the jail and then made into slaves. And since then, the Bolometic people, we look down. Maybe that way the white man will let us live in peace we don't bother him. But they took all our land away. That's why we're up in the mountains in the Pukuk territory. Oh, yes. And white men, well, they still come up here. And the Pukuk is so evil that he doesn't help us. Oh, no. A few months ago, The white men arrived. They were very angry because we make our own moonshine and they want us to buy it from them. They were so angry that they burnt 3 of our houses with the people inside. And the Pukuch is so mean that we could hear him laughing while the houses burnt. He was so mean that he told Mr. Wind to stop blowing. So for many weeks we had to smell that smell of our burnt friends and family. The Pukuch. Rominka Perez. Rominka Perez went to fetch the water. You see, we have to walk about 2 hours to the closest well. And she was coming back with her big water jug when suddenly, out of the bushes jumped a white man. He was dirty, he was skinny, his hair was standing. Oh, but she stood her ground. She's very courageous. She looked at him in the eyes, and yes, they were red and bloodshot, like when you have a fever. Oh, so she knew it was the Pukuch. And then the man started talking to her, but he was talking Spanish. We speak Bolometic. We don't understand Spanish. And then the white man stretched his arm to grab her water jug. Ha! Rominka turned around and started running. The man started running after her, and he kept falling like a drunk man, and he'd stand up and yell all these words to her, and she just ran as fast as she could. We will never forget that day, how she came into the village yelling on the top of her lungs. She went into her house, and just before that, she threw the water jug on the floor and it spilled. And the white man, like a crazy guy, he arrived and threw himself face first in the water and started lapping it like an animal. Then he turned around and just lay on his back and started repeating the same word over and over again. Ayúdame, ayúdame. We don't speak Spanish. And then the cry of the women of the village, oh, that high pitched sound saying, hey men, won't you do something? The Pukuch is on the ground. Kill him! We all grabbed our machetes and we stood around that being on the floor, and we sort of doubted for a moment. Oh, but once you give the first blow, it's easy. We all started hacking that body and we cut it into pieces. And the children, they even kicked it and threw rocks at it. And when we were sure it was dead, we went inside to celebrate. Good times would come now. The Pukuch was dead. We danced, we drank. And in the morning, yes, we had dry mouths. We came out of the big community house, and Rominka looked at the body and she was surprised. Say, hey, look, the Pukuch has bones. I thought, he'd be empty inside. Then she turned around and asked her neighbor, Maria, you go down to the town where they speak Spanish. What does ayúdame, help me, help me? What does that mean? But Maria didn't know. We don't speak Spanish. And we didn't have time for that. We kept our chin really high because good times were coming. We were sure that day it was going to rain, and then our crops were going to grow. We were going to have so much food. Our children would even be fat. For about a week, we walked with our heads up. But now, this year has been the worst year ever. Hasn't rained once. Our crops, they're gone. And our children are dying now. But we learned a lesson. Oh, yes, we learned that lesson. Pukuch. There's not just one of them out there. No, there's maybe 100 pukuchs, a lot of evil in the mountains. And the white man, well, they keep coming, even up here, with their boots, with their big horses, and their huge guns. And they take away whatever we have managed to put aside. Thank
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow. Wow. Two wonderful stories, one running right into the other. Very nice. Very nice. And tell me a little bit about the origins of the second story.
She's a writer. I really recommend her work. It's definitely translated into English. It's Rosario Castellano. She
Hmm.
is a 20th century writer, and she is from that area of Chiapas, which is in the south of Mexico. And my wall is falling down. And she has many, many works where she gives voice to the indigenous people
Uh-huh.
of that
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
which for her time is very courageous.
Yeah.
And she has a reflection of what it means to be a woman in those times, in
Yeah.
our times. I mean,
In our
it's so
times.
up
Yeah.
to date.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's sort of like our Simone de Beauvoir
Okay.
years
Okay.
ago.
Very good. Yes,
And her
definitely
work,
with.
all her work is very, Oficio de Tinieblas is her novel.
Hmm.
It's hard work to digest, but it is so important. And
Right.
again, this story is not to make people uncomfortable. On the contrary, I think that's the only way we can heal by looking at the wounds and seeing what we can do. If we don't look at
That's
them,
right.
then we don't know
That's
what
right.
to do
That's
about
right.
it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big, difficult task that most cultures are facing right now, if not all, which is how do we examine what's gone wrong and where are the wounds? Because if we, as you said, much better in the beginning, if we just hide them away, they can't heal. They just fester, and I believe that true. Well, folks, we've had another wonderful story, a storytelling session, two stories. Um, and this is just an example of really what the power of these stories can be. That if we do open our hearts and speak to each other, even the difficult, especially the painful things, then we can start to move and we can start to heal. I can tell you as a storyteller that when I tell these stories, they're healing for me also, not just when they're heard, but to tell them is healing. So share this. You can find this, as you know, on Facebook or on YouTube. Um, Even more importantly, open your hearts and share with others. Find a way to do that. It's hard work, but it's good work, and it brings us to healing. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot.